If Marcus Aurelius opened his eyes today, he wouldn't see an empire of marble and legions. He'd see an empire of noise, screens flickering like torches in the dark, crowds chasing dopamine instead of destiny, and a world built not on discipline, but on distraction. The Roman emperor who once wrote about the stillness of the soul would stand in disbelief at a civilization addicted to motion, scrolling, buying, reacting. 2,000 years ago, he warned that a man becomes what he gives his attention to. And now attention is the most expensive currency on earth. We call it progress. He would call it chaos, because the fall of an empire never begins with an invasion. It begins with the corruption of its values. And if he could speak to us now, Marcus would ask one question: how long before this empire of abundance collapses under the weight of its own desire? Marcus Aurelius was never meant to be a god, though Rome often treated its emperors like one. He was a reluctant ruler, a philosopher trapped inside an empire that worshipped excess. Born into privilege in 121 AD, he could have drowned in luxury. Instead, he turned inward. While others sought wealth, he sought wisdom. While senators counted coins, Marcus counted his thoughts. Every morning he would remind himself that fortune was fickle, that the body would age, and that power, like dust, slips through every hand. His empire was magnificent, but fragile. Rome stretched from the deserts of Egypt to the misty forests of Britain, a web of trade, gold, and ambition. Yet beneath the marble temples and the roaring markets, corruption had begun to rot its core. Gladiators fought for blood, politicians for favor, merchants for influence. The empire's greatness came with an addiction, the addiction to more. And Marcus saw it. He wrote not for glory, but for survival. His journal, later called Meditations, wasn't a manuscript for the masses. It was a mirror, a reminder to himself that the world outside could never be controlled, only his own mind could. He practiced restraint while others worshipped indulgence. He treated simplicity not as punishment, but as freedom. 2,000 years later, his words remain eerily relevant, because we too live in a world collapsing under the weight of its own abundance. Our temples are shopping malls, our emperors are algorithms, and our citizens, like ancient Romans, are distracted, overfed, and quietly terrified of stillness. The Stoics called it the disease of desire, the endless wanting that enslaves even the most powerful. Marcus lived in an empire of stone. We live in an empire of screens. But the sickness is the same, and the cure, self-mastery, has never been rarer. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Yet if he were alive today, he'd walk through our digital colosseums in disbelief. The games are different, but the spectators are the same. We no longer cheer for gladiators. We cheer for influencers. We no longer seek bread and circuses. We scroll for validation. Our battles are waged on screens, our victories measured in pixels. And through it all, the same ancient machine hums beneath the surface, the hunger for more. In Rome, the economy was fueled by conquest. Today, it's fueled by consumption. Entire industries are built not to satisfy needs, but to engineer them. A trillion-dollar system designed to convince you that what you have is never enough, that peace is something you can purchase, one upgrade at a time. Marcus warned that desire was the root of suffering. Modern finance has turned that desire into profit. Look around. Debt is no longer shameful, it's expected. Buy now, pay later is the anthem of our age. We celebrate instant gratification like it's freedom, even as it chains us to anxiety. Our grandparents saved for the future. We borrow from it. And when the numbers don't add up, we call it the cost of living, as if survival itself now comes with a subscription. But what would Marcus say to that? He'd say that no empire collapses overnight. It decays quietly, one small compromise at a time. The Stoics believed that freedom was an inner fortress, not a financial state. That every time we surrender to impulse, we surrender a piece of our sovereignty. Rome fell when its citizens forgot this. Maybe we're forgetting too. He might look at our 24-hour markets, our digital currencies, our obsession with wealth as status, and see the same patterns he saw in the Senate halls of Rome. Ambition dressed as virtue, greed disguised as progress. And he'd remind us that empires don't just trade in goods, they trade in attention. They trade in time, they trade in the souls of their citizens, one distraction at a time. But here's the irony. We've never had more knowledge, more access, or more opportunity. And yet we've never felt poorer. Our anxiety rates climb even as our comforts multiply. Our attention spans shrink even as our technology expands. Marcus called this the paradox of abundance, when having more only exposes how little control you truly have. Sometimes I wonder, what would a Stoic Instagram feed look like? Would it be filled with quiet sunrises and blank pages, or maybe nothing at all? Because silence to Marcus was sacred. Reflection was currency, and stillness the ultimate rebellion. If any of this hits you, if you've ever felt that pull between wanting peace and being trained to chase more, let me know in the comments. Maybe you're not the only one trying to live differently in an empire that rewards chaos. Because this isn't just economics, it's psychology. It's history repeating itself in algorithms instead of armies. And just like Rome, the collapse won't come with fanfare. It'll come quietly, when enough people stop noticing the cost of comfort. Empires rarely realize they're falling until the ground gives way beneath them. Rome's marble cracked long before its walls did, not from invasion, but from indulgence. And maybe that's what Marcus saw when he wrote his Meditations by candlelight, knowing the empire around him was already starting to rot. He couldn't stop the collapse, but he could stop himself from collapsing with it. That's the part we always miss. We think survival means changing the system. Marcus knew survival meant mastering the self. He faced plagues, betrayal, and endless war, yet his words never trembled, because his peace wasn't for sale. His worth couldn't be printed, borrowed, or cancelled. Imagine that level of inner control today. When the markets crash, he would breathe. When inflation surged, he would simplify. When fear gripped the crowds, he would stay still. He would not mistake comfort for happiness or motion for meaning. And that's the lesson we've forgotten, the one he tried to warn us about. Our wealth isn't in our accounts. It's in our ability to stay calm while everything else burns. And that kind of wealth is almost extinct. We've built a civilization that praises speed but punishes stillness, that rewards excess but mocks restraint. We've mistaken abundance for power and lost both in the process. The Stoics said you can't control what happens, only how you respond. Marcus lived that truth until his last breath, and maybe that's why his empire fell, but his words didn't. Because true power doesn't crumble with the economy. It doesn't vanish with status. It lives in the quiet space between desire and discipline, where freedom actually begins. And right now, in this modern empire of endless wants, that space might be the last piece of real territory left to conquer. Marcus Aurelius never saw himself as enlightened. He saw himself as a student, learning, failing, returning to discipline again and again. His strength wasn't divine, it was practiced. He wrote to remember what we've all forgotten, that freedom doesn't come from control, it comes from acceptance. Today, we chase control like it's salvation. We measure worth in digits, value in visibility, and progress in possessions. But what if the real progress is subtraction? What if strength isn't in the empire you build, but in what you can live without? Because the truth is, the chaos isn't out there. It's in us. We built this system, we sustain it. Every time we trade stillness for stimulation, reflection for reaction, we feed the empire Marcus tried to warn us about. An empire that no longer conquers land, it conquers attention, and the only rebellion left is focus. He once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Maybe that's the antidote to modern despair. Not running from the system, but mastering yourself within it. Knowing that every purchase, every scroll, every choice is a vote, for chaos or for calm. And the real revolution starts when you stop letting the world profit from your emotions. So, as the markets spin, as headlines scream, as the noise grows louder, return to stillness. Think of Marcus, alone in his tent on a frozen battlefield, writing reminders to himself by lamplight. If he could find peace there, maybe we can find it here. Because wealth fades, power shifts, empires fall. But discipline, real discipline, outlives them all. If this made you stop and think, leave a comment. Maybe the world doesn't need another empire. Maybe it just needs more people who remember how to be free. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden wisdom history left behind, subscribe, because the past isn't gone, it's just waiting for us to listen.